A big month of reading around the dormer. It was cold out. We had a lot of snow, which means a lot of cleaning sidewalks. And that means a lot of audiobooks. So we're going to talk about those, including the 4 other physical books as well. And we'll talk about them after the break. Welcome to the dormer. I'm Michael. Thanks for stopping by. It was a solid month of reading. There's a lot of listening while using the blower to get those sidewalks clean, which makes up for less time walking when it was really bitterly cold. The doggo who would probably put up with it. It was a little too much for a lot of the month. So this month is 4 physical reads and 5 audiobooks. So 9, which I think is the highest since I started the channel, but partially that's because I'm reading longer audio or doing shorter audio books and wasn't doing the Malazan 45-hour things. We got 3 squares complete on our fantasy bingo. We'll show that. And I started another new reading challenge with the Broken Binding Club bingo and got through 2 books on that. So 5 books were 5 books off bingo. 5 books also 4 stars or higher. And this isn't inflation. I actually genuinely like them that much. And this allows for some play with stories that are a bit outside the normal profile. So let's just go diving in and see what we've got. Book 1, System Collapse. This is Murderbot Diaries number 7. So getting pretty far into there. It's an audiobook. It's 2023 by Martha Wells, who's from the United States. And it was narrated by Kevin R. Free. I don't really know what I can tell you that's new about this. This is book 7. So obviously by this point, if I tell you anything on the plot, you're going to have spoilers for previous books. Best thing I'm going to tell you is it's good and enjoyed it. No spoilers again. So it's just going to say a lot of our favorites are back and doing Murderbot things, which oddly enough is protecting people. It's not actually murdering. He's helping. 4.5 stars. Really solid way to start off a year. Book 2, going after a bingo square, was Paladin and Necromancer. It's a physical book. It was by Adrian Miller, who's we believe is out of the UK. This is a pen name, and it was published in 2023. We're going to go into it kind of deep because I don't want to do it as a separate video. Backstory: the world was ripped apart by rifts 7 years ago, which led to a gigantic war between demonic invaders from other realms, wars, and other planes. Our main characters are war heroes. Cass led a team of paladins and did well through the war, and Silver the Necromancer repels the attacks, both heroes of humanity. The demons are no longer attacking, but rifts still destroy a lot of the world. Your active story for this part: a few demons come through a rift from another realm. Our paladin is acting as a guard slash head of not head of the guards, but kind of like a detective, trying to find out why, and is convinced to have his necromancer wife help in the investigation. What they find will shock you. Okay. What it does well: ambitious scope. That shock you line was from from a review or one of their write-ups on it. It has an ambitious scope. There is a lot of good backstory. There's divine magic versus the arcane. The characters have real trauma. You have real marital issues between 2 very strong personalities. And there's some really funny one-liners. The necromancer in particular, she pops some pretty good lines. What it does poorly? A lot of the characters do nothing to help the story. The squires, their backstory. And you have a lot of characters that would pop in and you're like, okay, why are you here? What did you actually add? And the answer was normally none. Case issues, tense issues, point of view inconsistencies. Is it a narrow scope point of view? Is it omniscient? It's yes. All at once. Not well. It was too long. I would have probably trimmed 20% of the book and been a lot. It would have been snappier at that point. Grammar, copy editing is your friend. We should probably have some. Now, the best part of this is the war needs Silver, right, to use necromancy. So to win the war, Silver, which is the necromancer, used necromancy to save Cass and his paladins. But by doing so, it offended Cass's god, who disapproved of their marriage, or disapproves of their marriage, and cuts him off. I mean, this could have been good. It was kind of, but it was kind of a mess. There wasn't much joy in reading, which to that, if you're gonna have a wild, inconsistent flipping around on grammar, flipping around on point of views, if I'm enjoying it, I'm enjoying it. You can bypass a lot of things. But no, I got a square done on bingo. So I give it 2 and 3/4 stars. So I didn't hate it. I more hated the lack of potential. Like, it was there. The potential was there. Just act upon it. Book 3, The Wonder Engine, The Clocktar War 2, which is an audiobook. It's from 2028, which is by T. Kingfisher out of the USA. And T. Kingfisher is the pen name of Ursula Vernon. And it was narrated by Christine Havam. Again, this is a sequel, so I'm going to go light on the details here so as not to spoil book 1. And I did like both books. I think together they form a good book. They really kind of felt like this should have been a 20-hour, just smack them together and have a book. It's so cute. First thoughts, come on, let our girl work out her frustration. The male gaze by a female character is actually pretty humorous especially in a fantasy, like a true fantasy type game or book. And it's from a lady author. So this wasn't just the guy imagining what a lady would be like. No. So you go, Slate. You go after what you like. I really feel, again, like this is the second half of a single book. There's better character development in this one, especially from Learned Edmund. In the first book, if you saw the review, I said, hey, I don't think he's kind of a misogynist. He got over it. He learned from Slate that, yes, apparently women can be not just smart, but also have a lot of good action and be good leaders because she's in charge of the group. And what's really weird, we're doing a D&D campaign. We're talking about it. I'm like, I'm reading this story or listening to this story right now. We had a very similar thing happen in our campaign. I give it 4 1/4 stars. So yeah, another two out of 3 to start the month off. Kicking butt. Book 4, Head Pats After Dark, an audiobook by Virgil Knightley, who's out of the States, narrated by Raya Kane and Richard Brock. So what is this? I did most of this book while cleaning snow or clearing out snow. So sometimes, especially when you know you're going to be doing something, you choose a book that's just going to be so different from whatever else you read. Sometimes you choose it on a whim. This one just comes from talking with some friends and going, how come all the rom-coms are always from a lady's perspective? Well, here we go. You have a dual POV rom-com. In fact, I didn't realize it was dual POV at the time because the tagline is a cozy reindeer, I'm not sure what that is, rom-com for men who like crazy vampire women. Are they suggesting they're men who don't? Huh. Our characters are Satan's bride herself, the gorgeous Countess Dracula, an immortal who likes to play with her prey, and also thinks her arch enemy, or her arch enemy is actually a family, but the current rendition of that arch enemy is gorgeous. And then you have Trayvon Beaumont, the most accomplished monster slayer of his generation, who, of course, admits that Dracula's good looking, but he wants to slay the monster and cement his legacy. This is what he was trained to do all his life. And you have Death, who works for the Countess and feels underappreciated. So because he felt underappreciated, Death pops a trap on Dracula and Beaumont, binds their souls together, and sends them to modern Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Where, of course, on the way there, plot armor, they learn all sorts of things. So they don't show up and go, first off, what are you speaking? Secondly, they don't go, there's cars. Now, I mean, they show up and they know what these things are. They're like, I should get a phone. Which is like, okay. You just got to go with it, right? This was meant to be lighthearted, and I think we go with it lighthearted. Again, for no good reasons, they do not get cheese curd. You went to Wisconsin. They didn't even get Culver's. I mean, come on, what a missed opportunity. Anyways, Dracula and Beaumont are drawn together. The thing that bound them is making them like each other. It's absolutely hilarious when Dracula is like a spastic, jealous Japanese anime girlfriend. I realize Japanese and anime are redundant. She's like a jealous anime girlfriend. It's also really tedious when they like each other. It's like all the seasons of moonlighting done in one book. Cut an hour off this, may have been higher. Cut two off, it's probably pretty good. 3.5 stars. And I realize looking at it, it says it's a rom com, and there's always that part. It just, I think it happened a little too heavy, a little too early for that part. Like, couldn't you still hate each other a little more? Book 5. Talk about deviation and switching right back to something different. Solaris from 1961. This was an audiobook. It was written by Stanislaw Lem, who is from Poland, narrated by Ray Porter. This is so the original versions of this book that are all in Polish. The most of the English versions that we've had are from a French translation, and so a translation of a translation isn't quite there. In 2011, Bill Johnston completed an English translation from the Polish, and that's what the audiobook I listened to is based on. Apparently, that version was not even allowed in print until last year due to legal fights, which is interestingly enough there. It's like, really? How do they manage to keep it from print until last year when it was small press did it? So we have Chris Kelvin. He's a psychologist, arrives on aboard Solaris Station, which is a research facility hovering over this oceanic world, the mysterious planet Solaris that was the scientific bomb.com. Everyone wanted to go to Solaris and study. It was really the first place that there might be life. There's definitely interesting things happening there. It's a very different style of world, but its senses ran its course. And what's interesting about this book, a lot of times throughout it, like even late in the book, there'll all of a sudden be this section talking about, like, almost acting like it's a scientific paper. Like, a little late for the world building, but 1961, maybe the world building was a bigger part. Right? Older sci-fi, so be kind. Older sci-fi. Well, on Solaris Station, he meets a eclectic pair of other scientists. Each are just seemingly haunted. One of them got kind of a really dark voice like this, at least by the narrator. The other one is more like typical scientist style, who really don't want to deal with him. This planet is potentially full of life, potentially even is alive. There's this layer of slime covering the oceans, and maybe the slime is alive. Soon, Chris starts having visions and even sees a former lover who had offed herself, not getting in trouble on YouTube, and her loss is haunting him. And it's really messing with his mind, which is funny because he's a psychologist. So it's kind of funny that we have that combo. This is a bit slow. I am glad I read it. I gave it 3.75 stars. I think it might be difficult to go higher with this kind of book, short of maybe if you took out the later info dumping, later scientific pieces, and just had some action later instead. Maybe, but that might just be a modern reader and what they're used to. If you're interested, if you're on the fence on it, I would actually go ahead and pick it up. Just remember, hey, it's like sometimes you read a classic. And sometimes the classics, like, you don't hold them to the same level you would hold new fiction. Book 6, Dragon Rider, The Soulbound Saga, #1. This is from 2024. This is Taryn Matharu, who's from the UK. There is another Dragon Rider, but this is the Soulbound Saga one. Because, again, Dragon Rider, not quite the most original name in the world, is it? We have Jai, and I don't know if that's actually how you pronounce his name because this is a physical read, but Jai, Jai, is a royal hostage assigned to be the caretaker for the former king, the person who defeated his father and took power and expanded his empire. The king has since handed over his powers to his son, so he's now, it kind of felt to me almost like Foundation, where you have the old, the current one running, and the up and coming. Jai's brother are also hostages. They're assigned to work with the heir apparent as almost people who would go flush the animals out for his hunting. We have Princess Erica. She's Dansk, aka Norse. They don't say it, but blonde hair, barbarian-ish, but yet actually learned, knows quite a few things, and she's going to marry the raging a-hole that is the heir apparent. She's not intending, like, it's not her desire to do it, but she's making peace between the empires, and their empire is stronger, and then her kids. She's taking one for the team. Her kids are going to be able to go on to great things. And that's basically the plot for about the length of an entire book. I think it was about 250 pages of backstory. Thankfully, something finally happens. That something is the heir slaughters everyone he can, including the Dansk, the former king, his father, Jai's brothers. So Jai flees with the Dansk handmaiden Freda. While fleeing, he finds a dead dragon. Right before he found her, he found a dead dragon. He goes in and looks and notices that the dragon has an egg in its chest, takes it, and naturally the egg bonds with him. So hold up a second. The blurb says he stole it. That implies causation and action. He didn't do that. He was running away and goes, "Hey, what's this? Oh, hey, here's this thing I should take." Doesn't really feel like a steal, especially because it was down in the dungeons. It's not like he broke into something and stole it. So, am I actually mad that it wasn't an actual theft? Kinda. Yeah. But that's only because the blurb said it. It was like, oh, okay, it's kind of like a dragon egg heist, which would have been kind of a cool twist. This was, oh, found it. The two run off to the set of The Bound and the Broken. I'm sorry, the two run off to the set of Aragon. Whatever the Dragon Rider book has a kid find an egg. I did The Bound and the Broken first book right before it, and man, it felt like I knew what was going to happen based on this other book. I realize it's a genre, and it's a niche genre, Dragon Rider. There's only so much dragon riding you can do, especially if you're the one who finds the egg. It does end well, though. Oddly, as much as I ripped that part, I gave this thing 4 stars. And afterwards, I since gained a quarter point based on how much I keep thinking about the ending. It definitely, like, you ever been at a book where it hits a point and you're like, okay, I know where it's ending. And then it goes, oh, actually, what? Yeah, I've already bought book 2. Hopefully it'll be coming soon. It's due sometime in, I think, summer, maybe spring or summer. So it'd be fun to get. So I do plan to make a longer video going through this one and breaking it down. I just didn't yet. There's actually a lot to this. And then we had good weather. So apologies, we had good weather, which meant I had to go do a lot of outdoor stuff. So the outdoor stuff's fun. That's why we're a little late in the month. Book 7, we are Legion, Bobverse 1. So far, there's 5 books in Bobverse. This came out in 2016 by Dennis E. Taylor, who's out of Canada, and it's narrated by Ray Porter. How the fuck have I never read this before? Dude, there's sci-fi, there's flippantness, it's funny, there's silly, there's bordering on deep, there's cultural references. Bob is a software mogul who sold his business and got rich, but yet you still like him because he's taking care of some people who've been with him for a while. While spending some of his mad money, like going to a sci-fi convention and getting the VIP pass, I think, if I recall, he signs up for a cryogenics company that in case something happens to him, they'll cut his head off and freeze it so that he can be revived by medicine in the future. Naturally, he has all his money saved off, so he'll be rich in the future. Oddly enough, he's killed later that day by a driver kills him. Fortunately, part of the process is he's got that money set up, right? He'll be fine in the future. Except the future is run by a theocracy. And I'd say an evil theocracy, but that's redundant. So who has taken in this evil theocracy has claimed all the money of everyone who is frozen like that. He's actually illegal, but they're willing to use his brain in a computer form to try to power interstellar exploration because they're racing against their rival nations. So big empires facing off, and nations facing off against it. And he gets to go travel the stars, which is something he wanted to do. He's all interested in this. So he's actually excited by his options. And but he only gets to do it if he wins a contest against 4 others who have also been thawed. Dude. So maybe 1 other will be allowed to live and do another project. The rest will just be erased. So thanks, you did all this, we brought you back, and we killed you anyways. As Bob is tasked with finding planets for the refugees of a trashed Earth to live. I'm sorry, did I say the Earth? I meant the theocracy in charge of the states. Like that could ever happen. 4.5 stars. This was good. This was a lot of fun. By the way, what is with Canadian authors trying to turn the US into a theocracy? Looking at you, Margaret Atwood, too. Stop giving them ideas. Book 8, The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. This is from 2022 by Axie O, who's from the USA. I got it because I got kind of addicted to LitJoy Crate's annotated editions. Not really a book I would aim at. Also, this really one aimed at me, right? I don't think I'm the target audience. I'm going to be a little kind on it. Let's just talk about what goes on. Mina, she's the girl who doesn't feel pretty and sacrifices for others, but other people like her. Yeah, so kind of generic on that beginning. Interesting imaginative world. It is a Korean tale retelling. We have gods, a large, oddly confusing cast of characters, more Deus Ex Machina than a Greek theater, lots of plots that are not really explained well. And the writing differs through the books. Like it feels like certain chapters, like, oh, I figured out this author. And then all of a sudden there's this chapter that, even though it's the same characters, completely different feels. Like, were they just written at different times in life? Or were they just, I don't know. It's almost like the author's writing style changed, but they didn't re-edit to try to get some standardization on that. So again, some chapters are clear and great. Others are, well, I'm not quite up to that standard. The annotations, until the end, the annotations were weak. They're like, oh, this is my favorite chapter. Oh, this is my favorite line. Star around one I like. Like, okay, did you just write these lines and then throw a book around it? I give it 3.75 stars, and that's while remembering that I'm being kind. Yeah. My daughter did like it better, but I don't think she loved it. So I think we might have been near the same score, maybe a little higher. She tends to rate a little higher than I do. Book 9, Sunbringer, or The Fallen Gods 2. Yes, I got to it. This is by Hannah Keener, or Hannah Keener, yeah. English. She's from Northumberland, which, by the way, can we just talk? What a great name for a location. Northumberland. Man, it just seems like it's a fantasy world. Published in 2024. I know if anybody from the UK is watching, they're like, it sounds cool. This is book 2, and apparently I had forgotten the ending of book 1, so I was really confused to see a character come back. I was like, wait a minute. But again, Sunbringer's the second part of a story of a land that turned on their gods. In the first book, our god killer teamed up with a young noble girl, her symbiotic godling, and with a knight who was largely responsible for the slaughter of the gods. This time, and they kind of ended up working against the king. This time, the stakes continue to grow. Everyone is sadder, and we replaced any budding romance that the first book had with existential dread. Yeah, I mean, the romance in the first one, at times you want a character to occasionally be happy, and there was some happiness. It wasn't the most like super exciting romance. They were more like people taking comfort in each other because life sucks for them, and there's a lot of pain, and they're older. There's actually something I do like on that. I like that there was a range of age characters here, because you've got the youngin who's like high school age, maybe younger. You've got the godling who seems like a little baby, and then you got some older characters, midlifers. Again, hopefully this book and some of its sadness was just middle book syndrome, right? Because I like some of our characters have joy and comfort, just not too terribly much. I gave it 4 stars. Already bought book 3, waiting on that one. So I've now got the Broken Binding collection. I did manage to get the first book too off Broken Binding, so got them all. It'll look good. That was a big month of January reads. Some really good books. Some books I'm very happy that I got to. I'm very happy I got to get through. Let's go over and check the bingo boards. Yeah, we got 2 of them, and see how we did. Monthly R Fantasy Bingo. This is the Reddit Fantasy subset bingo. 25 squares. Get them all done. I'm doing hard mode on all of them. First one I managed to get done this month is entitled Animals. The hard mode is that the animal in the title must be a fantasy or science fiction creature. We have Dragon Rider. Popped it. In fact, we have Dragon Rider at an odd perspective because I was playing with graphics. Next up, we have self-published or an indie publisher. And the difficulty is that it has 100 or fewer ratings on Goodreads. There is an or the publisher's done an AMA with our fantasy. I decided to go after the author because I prefer to take care of authors. Well, Paladin Necromancer is. So we are, boom, 2 done. Last one for the month. Under the Surface. At least half of the book takes place underground or underwater. Oddly enough, I don't really have a true like dungeon crawl book any around. So I went for that Axio book. So as the Girl Under the Sea. Boom. That leaves Bards as the only thing left in 2 months to get done, which is good because I don't know if I have time for it in February. So we might be having a blank on that one for February. One more board. All right, the other one is Broken Binding Discord. I didn't yet get a spot for this up on the shelf. So I'm planning on putting it in the frame. I'm probably going to do our fantasy next year as a small one like this. These are 12 by 8 sheets of metal, so they're magnetic, and you can put 2 of them in a frame pretty easily. So that's probably what I'm going to end up doing on that one. All right, I got 2 of them for this one, which is good because that's 25 books in a year, so it's actually a little behind pace. First up, Sunbringer. I am going to do that as my single word title. I know I was planning on doing some others, but this is the neat part about doing it. Ready? They're magnets. Yeah, it's a 12 by 8 sheet of metal, 13 by 19 piece of paper glued onto it, and magnet sheets. I'm going to leave it as that one. The other one, of course, is Dragon Rider, counted for our fantasy bingo. The version I'm doing on this is unique authors, so I need 25 unique authors. Dragon Rider. Boom. And that's how you get through bingos. So that's 2 of them. Going to do 2 again in February, I hope. Thanks everyone for coming along, looking at the bingo boards and looking at the books read. I'll see you next time. We do some reviews on some books.